Репортажі про культурно-громадську діяльність відділу УНО в Канаді, спонсоровані фундацією Бориса Городинського.
So when I think about it, I realize that in my life, I've been schooled about why and how I must stand up for Ukraine, must defend the good name of Ukrainians, and must always challenge the foe by men from UNO.
It gives me great pleasure to address the 41st National Convention of the Ukrainian National Federation and to congratulate you on 92 years of leadership in the Ukrainian Canadian community. The Ukrainian Canadian Congress is immensely grateful for the work of the Ukrainian National Federation, for your leadership and dedication to our community, for all that you do to nurture and develop our culture and traditions here in Canada. The summer camps, schools, dance groups, choirs, arts programs, and other initiatives too numerous to count. You have made and continue to make a fundamental and irreplaceable contribution to the growth and nurturing of our community.
As we gather here tonight, Ukrainians continue to defend their land and their freedoms against the formidable evil force. And everyone here in Ontario and across Canada stands with the heroic defenders of Ukraine. The blue and yellow still stand its ground and will prevail.
Congratulations on the 41st Triennial Convention. That's a great achievement. So well done, and congratulations to the newly elected members of the executive and the re-elected members in the case of your president. Well done.
And now I would like to invite our newly re-elected UNF National President, Pan Yuri Klufas.
Our UNF 41st Triennial is a rallying cry for each and every one of us to continue reaching out on this most welcoming way to the newcomers arriving here in Canada from Ukraine. This unique triennial is a kickoff to preparations for our centennial celebrations in 2032 in order to honor our predecessors who not only created UNF, but helped build a Canada.
We have a presentation of certificate to honorary members of Ukrainian National Federation. So honorary membership is awarded by the UNF National Triennial Convention to a member for distinguished service to the UNF.
Very special individual is being honored. His name is Walter Kish. The Ukrainian National Federation of Canada is proud to recognize his dedicated contributions to the organization over the years, including his incredible 24 years and counting as a treasured New Pathway Ukrainian News editorial columnist.
And at some point I found that the agreement was that you would write your wonderful columns for one bottle a year, one bottle of whiskey a year. So since you've been with us and writing those columns for 24 years, but I could not find a 24-year aged whiskey, but I found a 12-year-old whiskey. So this is 1 year of this whiskey for 2 years of your contributions. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Originally, I was going to call this the UNF and I, but now I've decided to call it me and the UNF. The reason I switched the order there is very simple. In August of 2022, the Ukrainian National Federation was declared, quote unquote, an undesirable organization by the so-called Russian Federation. However, I was given the distinction of being a persona non grata in April of 2022, so I beat you. So I actually grew up in an environment where it didn't matter whether you were a veteran Uvulpa from Volyn, who was a Melnikevich, or people like my father, who was a stalwart Bondarevich. It didn't matter whether you were Pravoslavny or Catholic, whether you're from Veliko Krino or from Halichina. What mattered was one thing only, and that was whether or not you were wedded to the cause. To what cause, you say? To the cause of Ukraine's independence. At the time, frankly, UNO did not seem to me to be all that relevant to the cause. If words, simple words, can define organizations, I would have at the time in the 80s said that UNO was insipid, whereas Liga was inflamed. And I stand here before you now and say that, and also admit that the reason I had those feelings was because I was ignorant of the truth about what the core values and qualities of UNO and its early membership were. I did not fully understand or appreciate what UNO had been and was. And what was UNO when it was established? It was an amalgamation of different organizations. The Ukrainian War Veterans Association, which was formed to represent the veterans of the independence struggle of the First World War period. Veterans of the Ukrainian military organization, UVO, and veterans and members of the underground nationalist movement, the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, before the split. Who do I come from? Well, from the third wave DPs. Where does UNO come from? From the first wave of Ukrainian settlers to Canada who were patriots, who were nationalists, men who actually shared their ideal, and this goes back to 1932 Edmonton, of permanent warfare. That was the idea in forming UNO. We can't give up. This is permanent. This is a constant struggle to secure and maintain Ukraine's independence. So if you like, some of what I am, the joy I think you probably sense in me of being a warrior for our cause, for our just cause, comes from those men who taught me that that's the right way to be. So that's what I tried to do in the spirit of Frolik and Gregorovich and Pavluk and Luciuk and others. I acted. I followed Panchuk's gospel, Robeshosh, do something. That's all he said, my simple gospel, Robeshosh, do something. So I stood up and I helped counter the miasma being spread in Canada in the 1980s about supposed Nazi war criminals hiding in our community. That was the Deschênes Commission. Most recently, I had the quote-unquote pleasure of standing up in the House of Commons with respect to the Hunka incident and asking all members of all parties represented in the House of Commons to apologize to Yaroslav Hunka for the injustice they did to him. I worked with members of UNO to secure redress for Canada's first national internment operations. That secured a $10 million endowment that is now within the Shevchenko Foundation, there to further additional research about this still relatively little known episode in Canadian history. Think about it, Ukrainians and other Europeans, under the terms of the War Measures Act that would be used against our fellow Japanese, German, and Italian and Jewish Canadians in the Second World War, and against some of our fellow Quebecois in 1970. The same act, the War Measures Act, was first used against us and had a crippling legacy for our community. We recovered, working with members of UNO, the memory of Corporal Philip Coneval, who's celebrated in this very budinuk, whose branch number 360, the Royal Canadian Legion, was named after Coneval, a man who won the Victoria Cross, the highest medal of the British Empire, for his valor at the Battle of Hill 70 during the First World War. Now again, as I say, all of these kinds of things, and those are just a sample of things I've done over the years, have not been without some cost to my career, to my livelihood, to my reputation. So be it. I stand before you tonight saying that I think I've done my best to fight the good fight. I have very few regrets. And so it was that a boy from Kingston who became the old man who now stands before you on this podium, who was never a member of UNO, actually turns out, to his own surprise, to have always been engaged with the very core principles of UNO, the same principles that motivate each and every one of you to this same day, namely our support for the existence of an independent, united, and sovereign Ukraine in Europe. That is our support for the cause. And if you think that this is sort of just a flowery speech, allow me to quote one of yours, Paul Luciuk, who as a young man and as the first president of the Mlody Ukrainski Nationalisty gave a paper, or gave an address, in February of 1935. And I'm going to just read you a short paragraph from that. He was talking about the role of youth. So those of you who are MUNO, younger, think about what he said. The role of youth in the life of a nation. Here's what he wrote. We wish to attract and draw in that youth which does not yet understand their responsibility, and even those who do not admit who they are, because the old party feuds repulsed them and made them ashamed to be known as Ukrainians. We want to eradicate the feeling of inferiority and to replace it with the grand ideal of national freedom, to develop in our youth undaunted characters, to teach them to place the interests of the Ukrainian nation above their own personal ones, and to count on their own resources, because only then will they be ready to be of service to the cry, to the old country, as well as to our new native land of Canada. Wow. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed from 1935 to 2024, nor should it have. That same clarion call voiced decades ago echoes to this day. And so it dawned on me as I wrote these words and prepared for this speech that in fact, we are all members of UNO. I shall forever, therefore, be grateful to the stalwarts of UNO who helped me through the mentoring, the schooling, their advice to become one of you. Slava Україні!
Репортажі про культурно-громадську діяльність відділу УНО в Канаді, спонсоровані фундацією Бориса Городинського.